welcome to another edition of What the Fuck Happenings here. Yeah, here. In this space, occupied by something called a me. An individual sentient organism with a set of, agenda, dreams and ambitions and thoughts. Really just thoughts pop into the head through a mechanism of, thought popping. There's no magic in it at all. Just a bunch of old memories and old, Coke bottles and, I don't know, where's the beef commercials, little bullshit. Just a bunch of little bullshit flew in and now some bullshit flies back out in some sort of effort to convey some sort of understanding that the roller coaster of life is too rickety and nobody should be putting their kids on them ever again. We should just say can't do that anymore. Too bad, too messy, too many, too much collateral damage, not acceptable, blah blah blah. Just can't do it. Yeah, so it's sad, but you'll get over it. Is the argument. You can still live your little life. Have your little fun. You just don't do this I'm going to make somebody else do it thing. You just stop doing that. Not that big a deal. If life is so wonderful, you should be able to do it without having kids. I mean, that should be an easy enough argument to make, right? If you're going to make the argument that life's worth living, then why don't you get to living it instead of making somebody else who has to live it? Why don't you prove it's worth living by actually living a life worth living instead of a life dependent on, care and maintenance of, whatever, the next little bees. That kind of thing. There's lots of ways to argue this. So I'm going to do a few comments. I just read some of them. I'm just saying idiot, moron, retard, crazy fuck. It just, it's just pretty dismal. And some of these themes are so simple. I've been over them so many times, and you're just saying, how can people keep missing this? It's just too stupid. And then you have assholes like this, the nitpickers, the nitpicking, naysaying, backseat driving, butt shit, whatevers. They're just so annoying. These so arrogant and obnoxious. They know everything about how to do everything. So Jerry Hall, who I've blocked on my other channel because he's an idiot. But anyway, so yes, I'll remember you as, oh, you were one of the fucking idiots. Jeez. You said that you are a fighter, but important to choose your battles. Gee, I couldn't figure that one out on my own. Oh, thank you for that. Oh, I would have missed that totally if you didn't let me know that. Oh, oh, I have to have a strategy? Oh. All right. I think you are just wasting your time. Why the fuck would I care what you think? Doesn't mean anything. Because your reasoning is going to be so bad that it won't mean anything. So, but why would I, on the face of it, give a shit what you think? All that will happen is you keep waiting until you die. Well, that's not really what I'm doing. So, and as the comments illustrate, you do have to say this more than one way for some people to get what the hell you're saying. They interpret things so wrong. You're an example. I think on the Draft Physics channel, you're a pretty big fucking idiot in terms of you not following along at all. Anyway, then you don't whine anymore. So that's all. So, he says that's all he's calling it is whining. And then he'll, like the typical hypocritical, duplicitous, nitpicking asshole, he'll say exactly the opposite thing. And then say, look, I'm logical. Listen to me. Well, no, you're not very logical. Life will continue. So that's your opinion. Okay, fine. You say so. It's indestructible. Nothing could ever change. I could have taken bets, in 1970 about Trump being president. And you know, I could have made a ton of money, you know, in the sense that if I you know, because most people would say, no chance, no, it's not a possibility, it's too ludicrous. You know, so, you know, whatever. You know the future. Okay. Don't get me wrong. Well, what's to get wrong? I mean, you've said it overtly. Wasting time whining. So you've given me your fucking opinion. Okay, I think your opinion is shit. You know, I'm just what? It's first off, it's not whining. It's explaining. You know, and if you can't tell the difference between those two things, so you know everything that's a real crisis, you would just call it whining, right? But anyway, to share an opinion is never wrong. Well, I don't even know what that means. So this is one of your cliches, right? To share an opinion is never wrong. Well, I'd argue that, yeah, they're very dangerous, frankly. You know, because people mimic and people copy and people do a lot of things, and you know they're not very. You know, I'm a pepper, you're a pepper. You know, they all start dancing down the street. I mean, you know, so lots can go wrong sharing opinions. You know, unless your opinion is, you know, well structured and, you know, solid for some reason, then share it. But, you know, when you know your opinion is just talking out of your ass, then, yeah, you probably should keep it to yourself. Anyway, Schopenhauer did that. Yeah, and he said a lot of stupid things. So, you know, much of his credibility on one subject is lost by his commentary on another subject. It makes him terribly unreliable. I mean, he clearly had some problems because his mother was a very dominant character, had a lot of personality, and a lot of money. And he didn't like any of that. And so he was a despicable chauvinist, and clearly for one reason, you could argue, because he lived under it, you know, and so he felt the opposite power struggle, but it was a power struggle that was only unique to his circumstance, you see. But anyway, so whatever, people can bring up Schopenhauer. I'm not that impressed. It seemed like an elitist little putz. Okay, he spent all his money on clothes and lots of frivolous shit, and can't have much respect for that, frankly. Many articles have tried to express their feelings. Many artists, oh well, I don't know if that's a word. So that's what the word you use for philosophers or scientists is the word artist. So anyway, oh, that's a little loud up there. Anyway, Edvid Munch, for instance. Well, how much do I care? Dropping names is really a bad idea in front of me, just because, frankly, I barely recognize anyone's name. You know, I recognize nobody by their name. But anyway, but when you repeat the same message over and over, it's only your hubris speaking. So says you. Obviously, to say it's hubris would be idiotic. This is obviously, I find this annoying. Obviously, I'm not trying to solicit a gang or fans. You know, I'm not throwing candy to the groupies, am I? I'm not. There's no real evidence that I'm out to be loved and admired or any of that crap. So where's the hubris in it all? You know, I'm sorry, I just really get it. I mean, hubris speaking. So I mean, hubris isn't even a thing that causes one to speak. It's supposed to be something about how arrogant you are, right? Or how so it's not even an ego thing, hubris. So you're not even using the right words here, fuckhead. But anyway, but again, this stupid notion that somehow the message, saying it over and over again, isn't necessary, when clearly it is. And, you know, that's the way the world works. People have been arguing the same subjects and saying the same things for decades and maybe even hundreds of years, because of the nuance of language, and it cripples us. And, you know, a lot of the conversation can never go anywhere because it gets trapped in the fact that we do have insufficient words to explain the nuances of practical inefficiencies and different things. Well, anyway, let's just move along. It doesn't matter how right you think you are. Well, I think it does matter. So again, that's just more horse shit, right? Because how else do I personally judge retard? I think it really does matter to what I'm going to do. So unless you make an argument about how I'm wrong, then this is all just crap. That doesn't mean it can't mean anything to me. How do you think it's going to be a persuasive argument? Doesn't matter how right you think you are. How the fuck could it not matter? It seems really important if I think I'm right. Your whole objective here is to somehow indicate that you know better. You know, that you're right and I'm wrong about something. You're not doing any of that kind of arguing. So anyway, if others agree is up to them. So this is more just horse shit. Well, of course it's up to them, and the conversation is about whether or not this is a struggle to get them from one set of perception to another set of perception. And on both channels, this is sort of the objective, right? It's this idea that you're saying, look, there's a simple truth to our reality. So this channel, the simple truth is the roller coaster's broken, don't put kids on it. The other channel is your physics is broken, you know, grow a brain and you know, get out of the woo-averse and get back to physics, you know, instead of doing this wooey crap. Your physics is a religion. It's, you know, it's not physics anymore. Anyway, you know, so this, it's, if others agree, it's up to them. I mean, what is that? You know, you want me to print that on your fucking grave as one of your great quotables? I mean, it's just stupid. It's up to the argument, frankly. You know, how powerful, how well the movie is made, you know, kind of thing is important, idiot. Anyway, the more you try, the more you fail. Who says you? I mean, so you already know I failed. You know the future, you know I failed, right? So, you know, just like you know that Van Gogh failed. And even Schopenhauer, you know, in his own time, he wasn't exactly the man. Okay, so, you know, he probably liked that you're using his name now, you know, but he might not have appreciated that he was making that big an impact. So, I mean, all of this, you know the future. Well, I don't think you do. I'm not impressed with your argument. Let me just put it that way. Okay, so the more you try to do whatever this little trite bullshit is, the more you fail. You fail to make a persuasive argument. All you succeed to do is play the little nitpicker's game. I can find fault with everything in the universe. It's the Nietzsche philosophy. It's easy to tear stuff down. It's hard to build stuff up. That's just the fact. Easier to tear down you know, a building than it is to build the building. It's just a fact. Okay, you become like a radio that is tuned to just tuned on just for the noise. It's turned on just for the noise. I don't know who does that, but so I mean that's a rather derogatory statement. And again, if that's all you say, expressing their feelings is, or whatever that is, this whole idea that people should share their opinion is never wrong. Well, if you're going to call it radio noise, then it sounds like that's wrong. What's the right part of turning on radio noise? Making noise. So you're just saying that I'm not saying anything that could mean anything. I'm not saying anything that could be useful in terms of a building of a conversation, and you know, putting ideas together, forming an argument that could be made to very many people in very many circumstances and be compelling. That I'm not making any contribution, just making noise. It's like there's no function to even having a conversation about having conversations and how to have them and what impacts people, and having a conversation about you know, how much movies impact people, and how all you need to do is somebody needs to write a good anti-natalism movie. There's some things already out there that are pretty good, right? The little Fireball Express or whatever it's called. You know, the train, the guy jumping in front of the train, short film. You know, a little episode of whatever it was, detective stories or whatever. Little bits of it are getting out there, and you know, it's not noise. So whatever. But yeah, just fuck you. I mean, what a shithead. You know. Yeah. Goodbye. Yeah. Unpersuasive. You haven't convinced me I'm doing nothing, and you certainly haven't convinced me that you have the secret to success, that is persuasion, that you know exactly how to get Trump elected, kind of thing. You know, in 1970 you had the strategy all figured out, that you can make the word groovy a meme. You know, I mean, silly shit like that happened because, what, Paul McCartney said it or something, you know. That's all. It doesn't happen if he doesn't say it. So there's all kinds of stuff that happens in culture, and it only happens because the right people in the right places say it. If they don't say it, it's never said again, and that kind of thing. So, you know, there's so much complexity. There's no straight line to winning an argument, because it's really not about the quality of the argument. It's about how big a microphone you have in front of you, often. So it's more about getting a microphone than it is making an argument. And if you don't understand that about our reality, you're really stupid. But anyway, fuck you. Alright, so enough of that. We won't bother with the feminist stuff. We won't bother with the Indonesian stuff. So this is where we go to the, you know, people just don't get it. Alright, so all we are cocks and pussies with brains. My father abused, I think that's what it says, abused me my whole life. I can't wait for death. Death is liberation. It really isn't. I mean, I hate to disappoint you, but that's the whole point, is that I'd like to be able to say that, yeah, that works. Okay? It's even like the Buddhist religion, you know. Yeah, you can escape reincarnation by jumping into a fire. I mean, that really is it is a religion, right? All these people think Buddhism. If you're talking to a guy called Death, that's a religion, okay? Because there is no guy called Death. So if the whole foundation of your religion is a story where you have a interaction with something called death, then yeah, it's probably a religion. All right, anyway, and then this one, okay, right after it. Here we go. How do you argue against suicide? I don't argue against it. I'm just telling people, guess what? You're just, if you don't fix the mess continues. So that's the problem, right? This is a fight against a blob or something. You know, this thing that's out there in the real world, this replicating DNA thingy. And you know, sticking a knife in your head or whatever, I'll get you, blob, and you kill yourself. I mean, that's crack Suicide Squad. I mean, Monty Python made pretty good fun of that. I mean, you're not doing any, you're not going to stop the blob roller, you know, a steamroller, by killing yourself in front of it. That's just not going to work. And even killing yourself behind it, or killing yourself behind a tree over there, it's not very effective. And you can make lots of arguments about how you're almost giving the blob food. You're killing yourself, the blob will eat you, the blob will get stronger. But you could argue that if you're in any kind of civilized country, just by existing, you're using up a ton of resources. And that means the third world is going to be a little bit short of resources because you're consuming so many. And so they'll have less population. So the only limit you have on world population, you know, from the morons, is the fact that you consume so much resources that they all starve to death or something, you know. So they can't be quite as insanely reckless. You know, you put a limit on their, you cap how bad they can overpopulate by consuming all the resources. So the more resources you can consume, the more, you know, human life theoretically you limit. And so by existing and consuming, you know, best thing to do is put yourself in a coma, and you know, first join a religious join the Catholic Church or something, and then put yourself in a coma, and they'll make sure you'll live forever, at $1 million a year. So you'll really grind up the resources, So, so you can make lots of arguments. My only argument is I understand people are in pain, and they want to get out, and they understand that I can't be useful because I'm too distracted by my neuroses, or I'm too distracted by my poor health, or I'm too distracted by whatever, and so I can't make a contribution to the cause. I can't really fight the blobs. I got no swords, and I got no arms, and I'm crippled, and so I understand. I'm not telling people not to commit suicide. I'm just making the argument, if you think suicide means you've escaped, well, you really haven't, because they'll replace you like that fast. Another consciousness is going to take your place. So all you've done is change where consciousness is. You haven't changed its existence any. And you're probably going to have a consciousness that's in worse shape than you were. I mean, it's going to be in a place you would have killed yourself if you knew you were going there. You would have killed yourself even faster if you knew that was your fate. I mean, my fate is bad, but my fate as some piece of shit born in Indonesia is even worse. So, fuck. Which one am I more afraid of, right? My future, getting debilitated, diseased, and dying, or the future that my replacement's going to exist in. So I'm just saying that's the, there's picture sizes you can view, the bigger the picture gets. And I'm just saying there's lots of little subtle arguments about resource consumption and all these kind of things that you can argue. But the fact is the biosphere as a whole is what you're really talking about. And, you're just playing a role in a biosphere, and the biosphere will replace you. And it'll do it quickly, so you're not going to be spared. You're not sparing conscious beings any grief by killing yourself. It really just doesn't work, because whatever you were going to consume, some new piece of biology is going to consume. The sun will still shine on it like a solar panel. It'll just stick a new solar panel in. Like the solar panel dies, well, all the other solar panels keep making solar panels. So they'll just fill in the blank where your solar panel was with another solar panel. Another victim is going to be put through the dream sequence of horseshit that we live through. And it's probably, like I said, not going to be a better story. It's going to be even a worse story than your story. So you're causing the writing of a book that's even worse than the book you're burning. Kind of thing. So again, I'm not talking about any kind of reincarnation, spiritually wise, or your exact consciousness, or any of this other horseshit. I'm just talking about the practical fact that every brain is doing this stuff, of having a life experience and an adventure, and it really doesn't matter. I mean, as much as you think it matters that I'm special, look how curly my hair is, and I have really blue eyes. Can you see my blue eye? I'm special. No, it really doesn't. Everybody thinks they have something special. Everybody thinks, some people have like really long nose hair. I have the longest nose hairs in the world. People grow their fingernails. I have the longest fingernails. Everybody thinks they have something really cool. I have very smooth knuckle creases, even though they weigh 400 pounds and, smell like dog shit. They're always polishing their knuckle creases because they have excellent knuckle creases. So everybody's living for some kind of, in some sort of horseshit delusion that they're magical beasts, they're super attractive or super athletic or super this or super that, or they have super big feet or super big anuses or super big penises or super big something. Super. Everybody thinks they are super in some special super way. I'm a super caregiver. I'm a super love person. I'm a super hugger. I'm a super. They all think there's something. and they're all living some sort of, you know, Winnie the Pooh adventure, and all the little characters are interesting and blah, 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 blah. But it's all bullshit in your brain, and it really doesn't matter. I could change the characters. You know, I can take Eeyore out and put in something called, you know, Flim Flam. You know, just make another character. It doesn't matter. I mean, they're really not integral. You could just create a, you can replace the rabbit with a turtle. You can, you know, it doesn't matter. So, you know, so, but again, it's nothing about reincarnation or anything. It's just a practical fact that the biosphere is going to make consciousnesses until we stop it. And it makes them based on resources. You know, how much does it have the energy to do it? Does it have the carbon to build it out of? Does it have the steel? Does it have the... And that's all it is. It's just a model of resources. So until you poison that environment, you know, sufficiently, make all of the little atomic bits unusable, you know, break it down so there's no more replication, or there's no more stuff to replicate, you know, to build the replications out of. Yeah, it's, you know, you're doomed here. This is a terrible story of we're not winning until it's done, because personally there's no escape. I mean, you know, yes, personally, if you're going to say personally from this little silly stories position, but there's a ton of, you know, it just doesn't matter where the story is running and what story is running. It just matters that there's the projectors are running. It doesn't matter what the film is. You know, this probably, you know, I'm not being perfectly eloquent in describing this, but that's a pretty good analogy. You know, it's about projectors. Projectors are doing the pain and suffering thing. The movie's irrelevant. Okay, it's the projector doing the work of living and suffering and fighting and struggling. That's the part that sucks. And we don't escape that suck, because they always replace the projectors that jump out the window. Alright, anyway. Do you believe... Okay, so let me go a little further here. Why do you argue against suicide? So I don't do that, shithead. Are you a consequentialist? I mean, these are just such stupid words. Well, I guess if you're saying, am I a cause and effectist? Yeah, that's right. What a consequentialist. What the fuck is that shit? Yeah, I mean, it's just too stupid. Do you believe that you, living in order to spread the message of anti-natalism, veganism, and thus potentially reducing the amount of suffering in the world via the... Oh, I didn't even read all this crap. Suffering in the world via the viewers who adopt more suffering-friendly lifestyles. Well, that was a big thing to put in quotes. Do I believe that I'm maybe important in terms of being a messenger? Like, I'm not Paul McCartney. You know, I'm not doing the meme thing. You know, in the sense that I'm not going to... I might not be the thing that spreads the butter, but I'm making the butter, so to speak. So I might be useful, and I might be integral in some way. It's true. Can't say for sure, can I? You know, it's again, I can't see the ending from here, so I can't see whether I win the race or not. You know, the other guy might fall down. Lots of things can happen. So it might look like I'm not winning, but yeah, I'm actually winning. Alright, justifies the number of deaths that result in the meantime. So I don't even know what that means. Suffering in the world via the viewers who adopt more suffering-friendly lifestyles justifies, in order to spread the message of anti-natals. You believe you living in order to spread the message justifies the number of deaths that result in the meantime. I don't even know what that means. Deaths concerning food production, i.e. killed, poisoned rodents. So this is some idiot who thinks the food you feed to a cow doesn't kill just as many rodents and things. The argument isn't that you have to farm more vegetables or more grain or more anything, that you farm more. The argument is that you don't waste 70% of what you farm by feeding it to an animal that won't do anything good with it. You'll mostly make methane and poo out of all the rodents that died on the wheat field. So, these are people are just so fucking stupid. You just, so the guy's saying, why are you repeating the message? Well, because people are so fucking stupid. That's why I'm repeating it. They can't understand anything. See, we're making so much stuff, like the vegetable grains, all the farms that aren't animal farming, right? So all the farms that are just producing non-animal product. The fact is, if we didn't feed 3/4 of that to animals to eat them, we could farm half as much as we farm now in the world and feed just as many people. So we could feed all the people by just using the grains directly without putting them through the inefficient animal organism to create much less calories. So you're taking stuff that has a whole bunch of calories, billions and billions of calories, you're putting it into animals that are wasting 99% of those calories. Okay, they take 10 calories and turn it into 1 calorie of meat. All right, so it's really inefficient. So you're just taking all the value of all that grain and all that crap you grew, and you're destroying it by putting it in the animal, and then you're ruining the environment on top of that, and it's not doing your health any good. So it's completely insipidly stupid, logically. So there's no argument that there's more death in grain production. But regardless of that, why do I need to even worry about it? I mean, my argument doesn't rest on veganism or vegetarianism. If everybody was a vegetarian tomorrow, I'm not going to argue the world is a wonderful place, retard. Fuck. There's not much difference between getting killed by the wheat combine in some horrible way, or being eaten by a wolf or a bobcat or all the other animals we killed off, all the predators that would be killing the mice anyway. The biosphere is the thing that's the problem, shithead. What humans are doing to it is just, like I said, I mean, I'm not even, like I said, my veganism is pretty weak, just in making the point that it's such a tiny percentage of the horror taking place on planet Earth. The natural world is a meat grinder all by itself. All of those animals die. All of them. Every single one of them gets killed. And in the natural world, they get killed really fast. So they don't even live very long before they get killed. So they just keep going through a cycle of, wake up, dead. Oh, shit, I didn't get very far. Wake up. Hey, I'm alive. Oh, dead. Damn it, I didn't get very far. I mean, most of them are getting very fucking far. But anyway, if so, there is no limit to what you can or should do as long as it reduces overall suffering. Well, you have to know what overall suffering is, right? So again, this is an argument that's so damn fucking simple, and yet idiots don't get it. The future is really big, okay? The future goes like from now way into the future, okay? It's really a big place, the future. The present is a little tiny sliver of thing. You can barely see it. It's stuck right in between the past and the future. And it's this little tiny thing. It almost means nothing. It's so small, so thin, you can't even pick it up. It's, ooh, I had it. Oh, ew. Yeah, I missed it again. So whatever you're going to evaluate when you're doing, say, this overall suffering, well, the overall suffering gets measured based on what gets on the future scale. Okay, so if I killed 1 billion people tomorrow in a horrible way, I mean, I slit them open, had their guts fall out, and they were like, oh, that was horrible, my guts fell out. I went through a horrible experience. I could justify it, frankly, if I prevented even more of that happening in the future. So this idea of what overall suffering is always has to be measured based on what the end is after you've gone through the future. See, you have to go through the past. Oh dear, that's expensive. But you can't do anything about stuff. The money you've already lost, you can't do anything about. We're talking about preventing losing more money. And you have to evaluate that over a number of years. You can't evaluate that over, well, I didn't lose any money this second. That doesn't mean anything. What transactions you're making right now don't mean anything. It's whether you have to pay rent for the rest of your life means something. You know, that kind of thing. So to say, oh, I only have to pay 50 cents a day on my credit card. Well, 50 cents a day for the rest of your life is a lot of money. So you have to do the evaluation, and it's a little more complicated than just saying, you know, what's in it for me or what's in it for him. It's what's in it for them. You know, that's the real question. Anyway, that is, you can do the most horrific act possible, but as long as it's a mechanism for reducing overall suffering. So again, it's just more, you know, you're too vague. But yeah, that's the truth. That's right. The end goal is to clean this up as efficiently as possible, and that's all. Everything's okay. Yes, that's correct. To give an example, let's say you have a woman. Well, your example will suck because you're such a stupid, inarticulate piece of crap. But anyway, okay. Okay, let's say you have a woman, a complete stranger you know nothing about except the following, that can possibly have 10 children later on. You can one. That can possibly have 10 children later on. You can one. Oh, one is an example. Rape, torture her for months, but she won't give birth to a single one after that. Or two, leave her alone and she will give birth to those 12 children. Yeah, or else you could just explain to her, please don't have kids, and she completely changes her life. You show her how the roller coaster is broken, and that she's likely to just cause suffering. Like, all her kids are going to die, that she's not going to be able to control how they die, and some of them could die very poorly, they could be born disabled, they could go through all kinds of horror. And why does she want to be playing Dr. Frankenstein like that? Why does she want to take the brain off a shelf, you know, and shove it into the monster? And then what if the monster's body is broken? Or what if the brain you put in it is shit? You want to take care of that thing? How are you going to fix it if it goes wacky and does horrible things? How are you going to undo it? There's no undo button. There's no fix it button. There's no repair button. There's no anything button. So I could just explain it to her. Why do I have to rape and brutalize her? So it's a silly example. But yes, of course, if persuading doesn't work, I would argue that sure, go ahead, push her downstairs, beat the shit out of her, do whatever you have to do. But understand that we still live in a society, a civilization, and you're going to go to jail. All right? So, yeah, you did the right thing, but you're going to go to jail, asshole. So, I mean, this is back to the whole vigilante argument, right? There's some sense to it, right? I mean, lots of the criminal justice system is broken, right? I mean, if I was the people whose son was killed by OJ, I mean, they have pretty damn good reason to just whack that fucker, right? I mean, the lack of justice they got, I mean, their son was killed for no good reason. I mean, you know, just horrible. I mean, it's bad enough he's committing this crime against his wife, but he took out, you know, somebody completely innocent. And it's a horrible thing. And so, you know, if those people decide to whack the guy, I have a hard time sitting on the jury saying, oh, you did the wrong thing. You know, when you ran him over with your Mercedes. Yeah, you did the wrong thing. You shouldn't have done that. Well, it's kind of, yeah, in this case, you did the right thing. You did what you did. It's perfectly rational and reasonable. So obviously, if we have all these facts, maybe no jury would ever convict you, right? So there's lots of cases where people did that, you know, euthanasia thing a little too aggressively. You know, the whatever they call them, some kind of angel or something, angel of mercy. Again, I'd have a hard time convicting them. But look, our society clearly put Jack Kevorkian in jail for 7 fucking years. 7 fucking years in jail. All right, hard prison jail, you know, for having empathy. So obviously our society is so far from getting any of this message at all. So this is a difficult struggle, a battle, and all that crap. And so what contribution did this mush make? Oh, that's right, none at all. Thank you very much for nothing. So use a stupid illustration that, you know, again, why don't I just persuade the woman not to have the 10 kids? We haven't even tried that. You have to understand that as all the civilized cultures aren't saying to the third world, please have less children, your life will be better, we'll give you more money. We haven't done anything to discourage reckless reproduction. So there's no memes out there. There's no billboard posters saying something like replicate responsibly. You know, if you're under 21, you really have no right to be pregnant because you haven't even accomplished any of the necessary functionality tests to say that you're even worth genetically copying. You know, you haven't even proven that your genetics is anything at all. That there's anything special about you that we need more copies of you walking around. Well, half of you, and half of the retard you're, you know, allowing to soil your genetics, mix with it. I mean, you know, this is so easy to understand in terms of the mechanics of it, and you see that people don't give a damn. They fall in love because somebody's attractive, or they're this or they're that. That and they don't even recognize that, you know, you're mixing two genetic codes, and there could be all kinds of incompatibilities that don't have anything to do with how you feel about the person. It's just not the right person for you to mix your genes with. You know, and that conversation doesn't take place. So, I mean, none of this takes place, right? I mean, none of this, no kid growing up is exposed to any of these conversations and taking responsibility for their existence on this planet or any of that crap. They're just raised in a bunch of mumbo-jumbo and religion and horse shit. And that is what we're attempting to change. And so how is this a contribution? Fuckhead. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see it. All right. Let's see. Specifically interested in your thoughts about his niece's new book. Oh, so this is 2 comments. Oh, we'll talk about Trump. Yeah, I haven't seen that, but Trump was already a known quantity. All right? I mean, he'd already been exposed as an imbecile and an idiot decades ago. So, you know, the whole way that all of a sudden people have forgotten who somebody is, or forgotten his interviews, or forgotten any of the shit. I mean, it's just amazing that people are this stupid, are foolable. You know, and what kind of shyster and you know, manipulator Donald Trump is. I mean, what kind of, you know, insane ego problems he has. But it doesn't matter, right? So it just illustrates just how bad things have gotten, where people will turn, you know, an absolute piece of shit into something good because written on the back bumper is, I'll be mean to foreigners. You know, whatever it is. Like I said, this is all just about the immigration issue, really, and it doesn't come down to anything else. I mean, obviously the money people are always going to vote Republican, because they're just going to vote for any guy. And obviously the only reason why Trump won is because all the other Republican candidates were idiots. I mean, they were. It was like watching a bunch of, you know, 12-year-olds, you know, running for president. It was just so bad. I mean, and that's just part of the fact that the world has become crazy in the sense of the amount of, you have to live a ludicrous life and not care that you've lived a ludicrous life to run for president. I mean, it's just, you have to be so, it's like those people who, you know, just think they're above the law and above the, you know, getting caught, or, you know, they just have some kind of insane amount of confidence. And you have to have an insane amount of confidence to think you could survive the inspection that goes on, you know, of every detail of your life. You know, obviously it's going to intimidate most rational people. So they're not going to run for president. Anyway, because the new bums will suffer, obviously. And the newborns will suffer, obviously. So I don't know what that is. If you're serious about a rational solution, shouldn't you be encouraging people to have large families? So this is just so amazing. You know, whose side are you on, and for what reasons? Overpopulation will probably bring all life on the planet to a conclusion faster than anything else. Why would it do that? Obviously, life got here through overpopulation. We're breathing shit. Okay, the shit of the original life forms on Earth was oxygen. They shit it, and now we're feeding on it. You get that? Like, the oxygen in the atmosphere wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for the shit. The pooers are still pooing the oxygen every day. The plants, they're still pooing it into the. And if they didn't do that every day, if they didn't put the oxygen, the solvent, into the air every day, we'd run out of oxygen this fast. Because it's oxygen. It combines with everything. It oxidizes everything. So it's used. It goes back into the cycle so fast. So we're completely dependent on eating their poo. So that's how this thing does. You can't break this thing. You can't. You have to get it. You have to blow it up. You're not going to sit there and overpopulate it or something. What do you think would happen if there's overpopulation on planet Earth of human beings? They'll just have a war. I mean, and yeah, it could be a really bad one. It could be a nuclear war. Do you think it's going to kill every human? It's only going to kill every human if you do it on purpose to kill every human. You strategically put the bombs in all the right places and blow it up just right. You can kill all the humans. But that's the only way you can do it. I mean, some stupid war between Australia and China or something isn't going to kill all the humans on Earth. So, I mean, you're just so fucking stupid. Creating a war isn't going to solve the problem, idiot. You don't think we always survive wars? Well, humans will survive war. Anyway. Yeah, and obviously just hugely expensive in terms of how poor the quality of life will be. So just too dumb. And this, I don't know what the fuck this is. Determinism, ego death, done. I don't know what that means. I mean, this whole concept of ego death, like somehow it's a deterministic universe and somehow that kills your ego. No, it doesn't. I mean, I should know. I'm as hard a determinist as you can be, but I still sense some sort of ego thing happening inside me emotionally and psychologically, so it doesn't kill your ego. It just kills the notion, okay, that I really did something. Like I, that I, well, in a sense you do. In a sense you take, the world comes into you, it bangs into you, does experiences, and you have a byproduct. So it's like if somebody goes to medical school and they really struggle and they spend 7 years and they work really hard, there's some sense where you say they should have a right to be sort of proud of the fact that they endeavored to persevere and they did all this stuff to become, skilled. And so that work is a real thing to have real ego about, in a sense. Now, they couldn't make any other choices. I mean, it was inevitable that they were going to do that because of their psychology and their ambition and all this other stuff. But it doesn't change. I mean, ego is part of the determinism. Ego is part of the mechanism that creates ambitions and causes and purpose and all of that crap. So I don't know what you mean done, because it's deterministic that somehow you've undone the ego. Well, you really haven't undone anything. All you've done is recognize that when you're going to think about it philosophically, you're going to know that, yeah, I couldn't have done anything other than what I did. So, being in the same place, making the same choices, with the same information, I would have made the same choice. Now, if I could go back, and show up to my younger self, as a ghost, and say something new, create a new thing, where the ghost says to him, "Don't smoke, you idiot." Okay, yeah, never smoke. Didn't do you any good. Or something like that. Well, then, yeah, I could change my decision. But, nothing else is going to change it. Well, anyway. Then it says B1, B2. Suicide, done. I don't know what does that even mean? And then it says ignorance, suffering, done. I don't know what that means. It's not, I mean, obviously, a lack of appreciation for the waste that suffering is. It's this negative thing, and understanding its proportional cost and all of that kind of crap. You could say it's ignorant not to understand or appreciate that the roller coaster is killing too many kids. So the people still putting their kids on this roller coaster that kills too many kids, you know, maims, tears off their arms, does all kinds of stuff. And you'd say, well, the only thing you can make them do that would be they've got to be preposterously ignorant. But what does this done part mean? So A, B, C, done. Well, anyway, don't get it. You know, too obtuse, to something. Still dip my feather pen in my eye fluid. Oh, whatever. Happiness equals self-interest, selfishness. Now, you still have to be built to be happy. You know, your psychology, it's in your physiology. Happiness is a little more complicated than that, right? I mean, we know there's people in terrible physical circumstances that feel not great a lot, but they have some notion in their head that they're winning. And that winning notion is just, you know, they're feeding on that, and to accept a horrible physical circumstance they might be in. And you have vice versa, you know, where people can be in really good physical condition and feel physically okay, but they worry about everything. And so they're not happy because they see all the bad stuff and they see all the crap, and they're thinking about all the cats getting run over right now. It's going through their head. Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh, that's hard. Oh fuck! You know, thinking all the bad stuff going on, and you know they're ruined. So it's not this simple. This equal sign, self-interest, selfishness. Not that simple. Obviously, there's a certain amount of bliss that comes with ignorance, and a lot of ignorance is people kind of chose that road. They choose to be optimistic, and they choose to evade anybody warning them about all the things that could go wrong. They just say, I don't want to hear about how the boat could, you know, crash into the bridge and blah blah. I don't want to hear about all this stuff that could happen. Anyway, productivity equals altruism. I don't know. You know, it's useless kind of terminology, frankly. You know, productivity isn't something you're going to get for free. You're going to have to think about it to do it right. Productivity doesn't come out of just guessing or sloppy, you know, so that you could argue. But anyway, why is everybody trying to do all this, whatever they're doing? This equal sign shit. 2 comments in a row doing this kind of crap. I don't know what that is. Reconciliations, convenient, unfairness equals self-interest. So you're back to that again. Honestly, objective fairness equals altruism. Whatever. Yeah, too mushy for me. I think it's very complicated to be productive. Well, that's good of you to understand that it's very complicated, because your motivation can be one thing in the environment you're in, but you didn't anticipate Trump was going to be president, kind of thing. You know, you didn't anticipate something changing the world, and now your good thing is now turned into a bad thing. So, you know, you change something, and you know, like I said, the change would have worked if it wasn't for. So there's lots of things in your way to know what exactly productive is. I mean, it could be that it's time for me to shut up, and if I shut up, things go better than if I don't shut up. You know, who knows? It's hard to know for sure what the future is going to be, because it's made out of so many uncontrollable waves in the ocean. I'm not going to make reconciliations. I think that's what it is. It's just because we're naturally selfish, but we can always recognize what we are. Well, the point is there's one thing to live your life with this delusion of I'm great, I'm special, I'm wonderful, you know, all this kind of bullshit, and you know, do what you're motivated to do in terms of get your gratification, you know, chasing the bitches or doing whatever, flirting or some other thing is fun, blah blah blah. Have your entertainments, but when you're going to do this serious philosophy thing about what should be in the world, or what laws there should be or what billboards there should be or all those kind of conversations, well then yes, you should step out of your role as a self-interested party and say what's best interest for all the little sentient creatures. And we also can live in a fair way by being honest and thinking in an objective way. Well, the point is the two things are different things, right? I mean, being clinical and being alive, you know, it's like the doctor, right? I mean, I would think he's got to have some way of turning off his medical knowledge when he's involving himself in the act of sex or something, right? He has to somehow forget a lot of the stuff he knows because it's going to make it impossible for him to have any fun, right? Too much knowledge can really get in your way. So you have to have some way of segregating. So you have to live your life as a little stupid, selfish asshole, but always with that little voice now and then saying, don't do it too stupidly. And you have to spend some time being a serious occupant of Earth. You know, you have to spend some time reading the newspaper and understanding what you're voting for and all that kind of crap. So there's these little jobs, these little social and civil jobs you have to your society, obligations to all of humanity. So, you know, you could look at it like I have some obligation to my town not to litter in it. I have some obligation to the state not to litter in the state. And then you could say I have an obligation to the nation not to make the nation dirty. You know, I have an obligation not to make messes and not to fuck things up. And you just extend that finally to this pool of all the sentient potential sentience and your obligation not to fuck up their welfare. Anyway, for example, even if we are selfish individuals, we should recognize that we are selfish individuals and do not try to make an excuse. I'm just saying, you have to do some segregation. There's times I'm just saying, I don't see any other way to do it. There's part of my life where I'm not obsessed. I'm not thinking about my obligations as a human being and as an intelligence and all that stuff. And then there's times when that's what my focus is, and I'll take out a piece of paper and I'll try to understand and draw pictures of it and try to figure out how to balance it and how to make arguments about it. So there's times you have to go to work and times you can play. So understanding your obligation to be productive, you know, in your work, and not to allow your personal life to ruin your job or that kind of thing. I mean, there's some other ways to analogize this, but obviously you have to segregate your clinical intelligence from your personal life, or the two of them won't mix. And the only way they can mix is if you're an imbecile. Okay, what about armadillos curl up to create a perfect shield? Well, it's really not perfect, so that's kind of silly. Somewhat, nearly a perfect design, so more, you know, so you're qualified. Nearly perfect, you know, except for the part where you chew off one of its legs. Whatever. I don't even know what that. Obviously, it's just a reiteration, I guess. So Dave, Dave posted a link to a clip of the Cuckoo's Nest movie, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So this is the kind of point, like that's a pretty old movie now, and it's really quite anti-natalist, you know, in just showing how ludicrous life is, and how we're all insane, and you know, the insane doesn't go anywhere. No matter what you do, it's really not going to fix it. There's not going to be an answer. And, you know, there's no real happily ever after to go run off to. There's no sane world you'll go find. And it's all just a lobotomy in the end. You know, I don't even know. It's all just tragic. There's nothing... Yeah, it's just a journey nowhere, and it didn't impact people. I mean, you know, you could say it didn't change the world, and it should have. You know, it should have done more to give people real solace about what we're doing here and what a mess it is. And, you know, yeah, well, anyway, and it just didn't. So this is one of these people who think they have something to say. Legal fiction, natural facts. Fuck you. Anyway, so anyway, I don't know. It's a nihilist probably. The dude in, so you're just too fucking stupid when you use that language, frankly. In the video you reference at the beginning comes across like a cop himself. So I don't even know what the fuck he's talking about. Crazy parents make you neurotic. All parents are crazy. Yeah, well, ignorant could be stated. But yeah, ignorant, crazy, same thing, right? Imbecile might as well be insane. Same difference. As real as it gets, forget Trump. This man should be president. Well, yeah, I mean, I'd do it right rather than wrong, that's for sure. Anyway, I like the waterfall analogy and not being able to predict whatever situation comes along in your path. I must say that I've had to come to the realization that the fear surrounding whatever perceived problem I have usually worse than. Yes, fear it's a real asset. I mean, obviously, you know, I'm very positive on the subject of being risk averse, but obviously that risk aversion can just destroy, you know, all practicality of living, because at some point you just recognize that nothing's worth it. You know, because the risks are so punishing. The worst case scenario is so substantially worse, so substantially bad, that even if it's a long shot, it's still a long shot you wouldn't want to go anywhere near, saying I'll roll those dice. Some dice have skull and crossbones that are worse than the other. You know, there's all kinds of dice you're rolling every day, and some of them are kind of trivial, you know, but some of them have lots and lots of faces with little smiley faces on them, lots of outcomes. But the skull and crossbones they have are even, you know, cancer. They're really bad ones. And, you know, you're like, well, yeah, even though that dice has a lot of good stuff on it, it's the bad is so bad that, man, I just don't want to go anywhere near that. And so that's when risk aversion just, you know, can make it difficult for you to be very productive. You know, to do much, to move, to breathe, to swallow, to do anything. But anyway, probably a good point to leave on, in the sense that that's the real ignorance here, is that people just don't realize that, you know, these trivial little smiley face things are nothing compared to all of these negatives that you're imposing the risk of, and that you're throwing so many sets of dice, it's inevitable that these bad things will happen. And the catastrophically bad ones will happen. The nuclear bad thing, you know, and you're just making all of that inevitable. And so, in spite of the fact that you know it's not worth it, you wouldn't want to be that loser. You wouldn't want to be the worst loser on earth, and yet you're defending being the winner. And you know you wouldn't, you know, if you thought it was realistic that you could be that loser. You know you wouldn't choose. You'd choose to evade, okay? You'd choose to get a better contract, a better deal, a better set of dice. You wouldn't roll the dice in that shape. And so it's only by pretending, well, it's not going to happen to me, so it doesn't matter. That's the cheat that people have taken, of thinking their own outcome is the only outcome that matters, when it's not about you. It's about all of us. And the fact that too many of us are having their arms ripped off and shit, and all kinds of horrible shit happening to them. Especially in the natural world. Okay. So anyway, I thought I'd talk more just about the, this art of persuasion and how that's a subject that, it's been on my mind for a few years now, so I should be getting somewhere, but I really haven't gotten anywhere solid yet. And I have too many distractions, I have to admit. But some of that might be working out. Like I said, if I can get the physics bulldozer to run, I can use it as a steamroller for the other cause. I mean, I can have dual purpose. So not all of it is without strategy that I think might work in terms of making it possible to have more of an impact. So we'll see, though. We'll just see what, it's part of the game I'm playing. It's not just about telling stories and providing analogies. It's about being effective in pushing the meme. I'm making it more effective in spreading. It is kind of like a malicious thing. You're sitting here trying to construct a virus. Try to construct some little monster of some construction of art or philosophy or form, some form of thing that, actually does. It's infectious. And part of that infectiousness will just be controversy, right? It'll just feed on the controversy. So once it's in the public, it'll just feed on how outraged it'll make some people. And in that, though, will be the argument, and I think the argument will, as it already has for most of the people, most of the people living in civilizations already have these apprehensions about reckless living. They understand that it's not a good idea to have kids when you're 12 years old and all that kind of crap. They sort of figured that stuff out, where the less civilized, you could argue, countries are driven by means that haven't figured out yet that you don't produce people recklessly. You don't make human beings in gutters and garbage cans. It's not very good if a human being pops out. So don't grow one in a garbage can. That's sort of a good, that would be like a good billboard. Don't grow a human being in a garbage can. Don't try to grow a human being in a garbage can. Anyway, so see, I'm good for something. Now and then. Anyway, till next time, and such, so forth and whatnot. I'm working on it.